What's good, Wagering World? It's your boy Five Star in Vegas, broadcasting live as always from beautiful Summerlin, Nevada. And here with my co-host, my guy, the only Sacramento Kings fan that I know. What's good, Spread Astaire? How are you this evening?
I'm doing great, man. We had a lot to talk about today, so I can't wait to get with it on the show. Right, a lot of the conversation we already had. We're going to go ahead and get that to the viewers.
Great time, as you said. We got the conversion going on. Just wrapped up the first round of wild card playoffs. The Mets go down to the Padres last night, so it'll be the Padres versus the Dodgers in one of the divisional playoffs, which is going to be a great series because the Padres got star power, man. So don't count them out against the Dodgers. You got the Mariners upset the Blue Jays. Now they're facing my Houston Astros. All eyes is going to be on that series with all the dirty tricks that Scott Servais like to play. So well-known fact, him and Dusty don't like each other too much. And Scott Servais is bad at hitting players, man. He just almost injured George Springer, former Houston Astro great, with the Blue Jays last week with a dirty pitch on his hand. You got the Phillies. They pulled off another upset. All these road teams were pulling off upset after upset as the Phillies take on now their NL East rival, the Atlanta Braves, the defending world champions. They took off late in the season, and that's how they ended up passing the Mets. What they ended up getting a bye, and the Mets ended up having to play the Padres the first round and got knocked off. And then you got the most hated team in baseball, the Yankees, at least in Houston and at least in my household, the Yankees. They're going to be playing the Guardians as the Guardians win at home in their series against Tampa Bay, pitching. I think the Guardians are going to give the Yankees a run for their money because the Guardians have a really great pitching staff and great middle relief and some clutch hitting. And their manager, Terry Francona, really is a master of playing small ball, something that the Yankees don't do. So we have 4 very interesting series. You know, I'll be looking most for my Astros. News of Matt Rule getting fired. What do you think about Matt Rule getting put out Carolina after 5 games?
I mean, why would they do that? I mean, I want the #1 pick if I'm them. Why wouldn't I just keep this losing formula going? Although I don't know if the cat who's taking over for him is that much better, but I don't know. It's just a disaster. You can't win in the NFL without a quarterback, and Baker ain't it. So, I mean, what did they expect?
Why is Matt Rule the sacrificial lamb in all of this? They've named one time since he's been at Carolina that he's had a sufficient roster.
No, yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. So, I mean, part of that is his fault. I got to assume he had some sort of input there. Everyone says, well, he hitched his wagon to Baker. Well, It's not like Justin Herbert was available, right? I mean, what were his options here? So, maybe he could have tried to swing the trade for.
He wanted Burrow. Remember, he hired Joe Brady from LSU to end up being the OC, and then ended up where the Bengals beat them out, and he didn't get Burrow. But I don't think he had much choice over the picks at quarterback. I think that GM did that. I want to say Matt Rule doesn't have a lot of input, especially being a first-time NFL coach. I'm sure that his GM is the final say. Well, the owner's the final say, but I'm sure the GM has a little bit more pull on who they sign than he does.
Where's he going? Nebraska?
I'm thinking Nebraska, maybe Oklahoma. He would do great in Oklahoma. He's a college coach, man. He needs to go back to college. So settle down, stay there, run his program, be hands-on, be a good teacher of men, go get 10 of the quarterbacks that he wants, and pick from them and have a better shot than he did at the NFL. A lot of head coaches get in some bad situations. That's why Sean Payton, who I'm very fond of, and I think is one of the sharpest coaches to ever walk the sidelines in the NFL, former Saints coach, he always talks about the importance of having a good owner and having a good GM as a coach. Similar to these quarterbacks, if you don't have the right head coach, you don't have the right OC, you don't have the right GM giving you the players you need to make your game better, you're not going to succeed. And it's a lot of these coaches and a lot of these quarterbacks in the NFL, they get put in some bad situations. You'll be surprised at all of these billionaires and all this bad business in the NFL, so.
Well, the problem is there's just not that many. There's not 30 quarterbacks and there's not 30 coaches. It's a tough situation there. Yeah. Coaching in the NFL is not like coaching in college. It's completely different. So I think it's tough for a lot of these guys. But I also think that they're also they're just in love with coordinators. They're just in love with coordinators. And it's like, oh, well, you designed some great plays, like Hackett and Staley, right? And everyone wants the next McVay because it's a copycat league. But now you got a bunch of guys who wouldn't have even been around for the second interview 20 years ago. And they turn them over too fast. They turn these coaches over too fast. So when you're hiring 10 a year, how do you expect the candidate pool is going to be?
You're exactly right. It's just so much turnover. These guys' leashes are getting shorter and shorter. I just don't see anything Matt Rule did to get fired. Maybe he's being smart enough, just get a head start on his next coaching position by go ahead and getting on the free agent market now. We don't know if he got in there with them and they made the deal. I mean, it's a pretty good time to walk away when you're getting $40 million, right? So
how pissed is he going to be though if they end up with like a top 3 pick and they get one of those stud quarterbacks though? It's like an opportunity he never had.
I still don't think he is. I don't think he is. I think now he's kind of like over that whole NFL experience, honestly. Okay. And he got his money. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him doing a lot of media stuff the rest of the year. I'll be surprised if he does NFL or if he does college football, and that's going to kind of lean to the next job that he's looking for. I would not be surprised if he's back dealing with college because he really did a marvelous job at Temple and at Baylor. All right, man, let's get to the past, present, and the future.
All right, Iowa and Illinois. What do we have there?
That was one of those tough losses, man. I always tell people when it comes to betting sports, you can't consider yourself a real sports bettor or a person who actually knows anything about the intricacies of betting sports if you don't watch the game. If you watch the game, you'll know the difference between a bad beat, which is when something just didn't go your way and you had maybe had a 1% chance of losing, like we've seen so many times as bettors, right, Spread, where you seem like the game is no way you could lose, and then the weirdest thing happens. This shot doesn't go in. This still happens. This free throw is missed. This fumble occurs. Something crazy that happens when you have full control of the game in the waning minutes and you end up blowing the game or blowing the cover or blowing the spread. And those are bad beats. Then you have other ones that are just bad handicaps where, things, you just didn't see the game right. You didn't see it clear. You made a bad choice. Things you weren't anywhere close to what really happened in that game. Kind of like what I did with the Utah and UCLA. We'll talk about a little bit later. It was just a bad handicap. But then you have bad luck. And this was one of those games where we really had bad luck with DeVito getting knocked out in the first quarter, who was the key to the whole entire handicap that we were doing. Tommy DeVito was the key to that Illinois offense being what it is now. They've always had a good running back, and Chase Brown, he's been starting there multiple years, but he never had anyone to take any pressure off of him with a good passing game that was smart with the ball. They had a terrible backup who started last year and was one of the main reasons why they struggled on offense. And Sikowski, they had to bring him in. This guy throws an interception on the goal line from the one. First of all, run the ball again, give it back to Chase Brown. But if you are going to run a little fake and throw it to the flash to the fullback, you have to be accurate there. If you don't see the guy, if you see that jumped on the cover, you got to throw it out the end zone, eat the ball, run it yourself, something. You're at the one. So I don't know if I blame Bill and staff as much or if I blame Sikowski because they know he's a horrible quarterback. He started there last year, and he's the reason they sucked last year. But it was so many wasted opportunities, and all of these things come from just bad luck. We lost our starting quarterback. You got to throw in a guy who's not as talented and who hasn't had any reps all week. So just a real bad luck loss, as I told you. Unbelievable defense Illinois has over there. Their team turned the ball over twice inside their own 20 and gave Iowa the ball. And do you know Iowa only scored in their game 3 points? That's how solid the Illinois defense is. Like I told you, they continue now with only giving up 3 points to lead the country in points allowed. So if they can get DeVito back, Illinois is going to be around in the Big Ten. They're definitely a great underbet because those guys can play defense. But as I said, you guys, as you get into sports betting more, please start watching these games, and then you can understand our breakdowns and other handicappers' breakdowns. You'll know whether you're dealing with a bad beat, a bad break, or just a bad handicap.
All right. Red River Rivalry. What were your thoughts there?
This was one of my best handicaps of the week. Pure dominance by Texas. Texas might be the best team in the country, Spread. I don't know if a lot of people understand that because they have 2 losses, and what's really glowing is that loss at Texas Tech. What they had a game, another 1% game where they had in complete control of Bijan Robinson, their star running back, fumble late in the game when they were running clock, and Texas Tech ended up being able to get the turnover, turn into a tying touchdown, and then later on winning in overtime at home. Texas, with Quinn Ewers at the quarterback position, might be the most talented team in college football. We saw how good that defense is. Have you ever seen anyone hold a healthy Bryce Young and Alabama 20 points? They were able to do that. I know they're saying that Pete Kwiatkowski is the D coordinator, but it's no coincidence that the hiring person has went hand in hand with that defense growing tremendously. Just him being in the room, he's considered Steve Sarkisian's assistant, and just such a smart hire. Probably the best offseason move Steve Sarkisian did was naming him his special assistant, because it's so much information that he gives them. There's so many ways he's helped, and Sark has discussed many times about how Patterson not only helps the defense, he helps him be a better head coach. So Gary Patterson coming to that coaching room in Texas has been huge. If the Longhorns can figure out some type of way, get some type of slippage from one of these other teams in the Pac-12, and they can slip into playoffs, they're going to be trouble. And I hope that the committee sees this and understands this, and I hope they don't downgrade them. If anything, they should upgrade them for that loss to Alabama, with them losing the quarterback, being in complete control, and only losing by 1 point. But I want to see Texas on a neutral field against Alabama again. I'd like to see them against Ohio State. I'd like to see them against Clemson. Those are the teams that I consider the best four right now in the country, with Michigan right on the outside looking in. Georgia's also in there because they're the national champions. Right now, my power rankings have Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Texas 3, Alabama 4, and Clemson at 5. I think Alabama actually goes down this week to Tennessee, and we'll talk about that later in the week.
Happened with UCLA, man. Boy, they got about as many wins as they had fans in the Rose Bowl, but they got it done. What were your thoughts there?
Chip Kelly can really coach. We forget what Chip Kelly did in Oregon. Now Oregon's a national brand, and everybody knows Oregon for the uniforms and how great they were. But you and I know, especially you as being a lifetime Pac-12, Pac-8 guy, Oregon used to be, not this good. They were pretty good when Otson was the coach and everything, but they weren't trying to play for national championships. They were trying to get into the Holiday Bowl, and Chip Kelly turned them to a powerhouse. Chip Kelly is an impressive guy, man. The things that he's done at UCLA are not getting enough notice. They've won 9 straight games, Spread, and the last game they lost was to Utah, and they got their vengeance in a very impressive way. He's turned Dorian Robinson into a Heisman Trophy candidate. DTR is a real quarterback under Chip Kelly, man. He was a star here in Las Vegas in the high school circuit. I didn't envision him being this type of player in college and dominating like he has this end-of-year run to the beginning of this year. He's been clearly the best player on the field when they faced some major competition. He's playing with so much confidence. He's such a great leader for those guys, and he's like the juice to that team. He gets that team going with his confidence, man. He's playing so loose, so free, making so many great decisions. They got some big-time speed on the outside, and they got a great receiver in Jake Bobo, who's really underrated. This kid is awesome, man. All he does is score touchdowns. They picked up Zach Charbonnet, got him to transfer from Michigan back to his home area of California, and he's pretty much represented everything that they are right now, and that's physical and fast. They're like physicality and speed is what defines the Bruins right now, and Charbonnet leans on you all game. Then at the end of the game, those 5 yards in the first quarter end up becoming 20-yard runs. Chip Kelly's made the Bruins into an entirely different team. They beat up Utah really bad. They beat them up on the offensive line and on the defensive line. And their speed against Utah really showed. It was a horrible handicap by me, because I've been watching this UCLA team all year, and I've been watching how they've been popping off the screen with their athleticism and with their power in the trenches. Their trenches are playing really well right now. He has a great talent pool in California. So Chip Kelly is when he got the right guys, and he's running a solid program. He's about to do some things at UCLA that the Bruins haven't seen in a long time. Process like Troy Aikman was there in the 80s, man. I forget about the Tommy Maddox team that almost went undefeated too. And back in the days when they had the old number one where they just give it out, you didn't play for it. Tommy Maddox, they had a pretty good team over there. They ended up losing the last game of the season. And I think that's the year that Georgia Tech ended up being called the national champions along with Washington or somebody. It was a really weird year that year. But UCLA was good that year too. But what he's doing is a phenomenal job, man. And all props to Chip Kelly. You can tell he has those guys in shape. He got those guys' mind right. And he's just showing the type of Hall of Fame coach that he really is. Utah, see you next year. You know, their season's pretty much over after this loss. They've lost already to Florida. Now they lost this game. Next week they get USC. Let's see if they're able to handle USC and Utah and deal with their speed. But what I'm learning from the last matchup is the Utes, when they're going against these fast teams, it's tight ends against wide receivers because the Utes don't really have playmakers like they had last year on the outside. Their biggest weapons are tight ends, and that doesn't match up well when you got the type of receivers like UCLA and USC does because you got to score in 10 plays with tight ends. They can score in 1 with those receivers.
A&M at Alabama. Break that one down.
I don't know if you saw this game, but A&M could have easily beaten Bama for the second straight year. Bad call by Jimbo Fisher on the last play of the game. I know he was anticipating. Alabama likes to blitz a lot and play a lot of man. So he tried to do a back shoulder fade to his best receiver, I believe Muhammad, who had size on the corner. But the problem is that, Slick Nick, you know, he's a very sharp coach. He anticipated that Jimbo was going to anticipate him blitzing and playing man, so he went zone. And it ended up where they had double coverage on the guy. Horrible play. The play looked horrible when it came out. I always talk about this spread. On the goal line, you have to make the defense think. You can't get out there and just run vanilla stuff, just drop back and throw it or just hand it off. You got to get some movement going. And I think that if Jimbo Fisher could have that playback, he would. Bama is not as good as they've been in the past. The college football world is catching up to them. I expect them to lose next week at Tennessee, whether Bryce plays or not.
You like Tennessee to win over Alabama, huh? You always told me don't bet against Tom Brady and don't bet against Nick Saban.
The problem with Nick Saban is he got Bill O'Brien calling his plays on offense.
All right.
Out of all the guys,
and we'll break that one down.
Might be the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll break that one down more on Friday, but that just shook me up a little bit.
You haven't seen Tennessee play this year?
No, I know they're number 6 though.
Josh Heupel, their coach, is a former quarterback. That Oklahoma team that he quarterbacked that year was one of the first teams going speed, going hurry up. He took his talent as coaching to UCF and had those guys putting up numbers. Now he's doing it with SEC talent. He finally has some guys in there or some extra, like real recruits. And these guys, they've always had defense at Tennessee. They've always been fast as Alabama. They've always been as good as them on the line. They just didn't have the key positions, the game breakers that they did. But now they have a quarterback who I believe is going to be able to contend with them. And I think their defense is really going to give Bama some problems. Bill O'Brien's calling some terrible games for Alabama. And Alabama's also dealing with the Bryce Young thing. We don't know if he's going to play if the backup quarterback from Katy, Texas is the quarterback for them. It's going to be a crazy environment to come in as your first road game going against 120,000 people. You know, Tennessee has one of the biggest states, might be the biggest state. It's either them or Michigan. I believe it's Tennessee has the biggest stadium in college football. So it's a crazy atmosphere down there. And Rocky Top, Tennessee is going to really enjoy this coming up week. They're going to be ready for Alabama.
Well, I'm fine for some new blood. Alabama's definitely had plenty of wins over the last 10 years. In the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys get it done for me against the Los Angeles Rams. I felt like I nailed the handicap that the Los Angeles Rams offensive line wasn't going to be able to keep up against that Dallas pass rush. Dude, they had a 45% pressure rate. 45%.
Yeah.
That's just unbelievable. It doesn't matter what kind of quarterback you are. It doesn't matter how good your play calls are. If you're getting blown up on almost half of the plays, and that's what happened. And you talked about it with this offensive line and the missing of Beckham. But this was simply down to that offensive line. They're having injuries there on that line. And boy, this NFL, like I said before, they need these rosters to be bigger. They need these practice squads to be bigger. Offensive line, you can't just bring guys in off the street. You can bring a running back off the street, you hit the hole. Bring a wide receiver out the street, you give them a limited route tree, right? corner. Hey, you're covering this guy. This is your area in the zone. These offensive linemen need to work together. And that's why I think we've seen so many unders here at the beginning of the season. And one thing I will say I was wrong about, when Dak went down, we thought that Dallas was going to be in trouble. And they've turned it around. And it's on the strength of that defense with Dan Quinn, Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. And then in the new NFL, being just a shutdown corner is cool, but you're almost better off if you're Trayvon Diggs. You can give up some big plays if you're making those turnovers. I can't wait to see this game against Philadelphia next week. And if you would have told me preseason that this would be one of the best Sunday night games of the year, I would say, nah, NFC East, But this is two teams that are really flying high and meeting at the right time. So we'll give the Dallas Cowboys their credit.
Cowboys might have the best defense in the NFL. The defensive coach, Dan Quinn, has done an amazing job, and you got to, give some credit to Mike McCarthy. Like I said last week, he's a Super Bowl coach, and he's playing to their strengths. These guys get caught up in how much quarterback, and they get off script. Cowboys have to coach this team the same exact way when Dak comes back that they're coaching the team right now. Kellen Moore has to protect Dak the same way he protects Cooper Rush with the play calls. He does it. He opens up the playbooks and tries to do all these exotic things and all these chunk plays instead of just KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Just get the ball to Zeke, get the ball to Tony Pollard, play to your strength, which is your defense. Their defense is going to make a lot of teams look bad this year. Dan Quinn is a master of defense. He was the orchestrator of the great Seattle Legions of Boom defenses. He's been around forever. He took the Falcons to the Super Bowl. He had the Falcons playing the best defense they've ever played in their whole franchise history. I like that Mike McCarthy is wise enough to let Dan Quinn kind of lead the show by allowing his defense to be the one. I love that McCarthy beat up the little pipsqueak with the old squad. The Rams aren't going anywhere. I should have bet before the season that they weren't going to make the playoffs because I told you before the season I thought they were going to have a difficult year. They weren't going to deal with success well. You see McVay all the time on commercials. You see Stafford all the time on commercials. These guys had their time of fame, and they used it all the way to they couldn't anymore. So now I think that this year is going to be a humbling year for them. We'll see how they respond next year, but I don't see the Rams making playoffs this year, not with the schedule that they have. Most of all, not with the line play they have.
That's where all those trades, now they've come back to bite them. Because you could find a wide receiver in the 6th round. You could find a corner that's – you're not going to get the best corner in the world, a shutdown corner, but you can find a guy that's going to contribute. It's hard to see guys that are the better offensive linemen that aren't taken in the first 1 or 2 rounds. These guys aren't – you can't get a 6th-round lineman that's going to come in and dominate. So I think this is where – and, hey, they got a Super Bowl out of it. I think many teams and many fan bases will say, I'll take a Super Bowl to struggle for 3 or 4 years after. But I think this is where those lack of those first-round picks, those pedigrees, those blue-chip linemen, it's really hurting because they're trying to do a patchwork, and it's just not happening.
They're very soft on offense and defensive line. Drew Whitworth, he was keeping that line together. Those guys played hard for him. They played really hard for him. A lot of them played over their steeds, and also he gave them a lot of mental advantages by having seen the game so long. He could tell them different ways to deal with different defenders because he had tape on so many people. He had so much experience going against so many different defensive linemen. So the Rams are in a bad situation. They did the superstar thing. They tried the New Jersey Nets formula, but for their sake, they ended up getting a world championship out of it. But long-term, that's a terrible business model, what the Rams have done over the past years with just signing these one-year huge deals and trying to build a superstar team without having to build any cohesiveness, but most of all, without building a culture and a base for the future. You always got to think about tomorrow, man. If you live for today, your tomorrow is going to be very, very disappointing. So it couldn't happen to a better guy than me with Sean McVay. So the same guy who was running down the sidelines with his team all the time and stuff, man. Just
I like McVay more than you, but I think we agree that this team is going to have some problems. So maybe this line gets some cohesion. Maybe they turn it around. Maybe not. The other team in Los Angeles, you hate Sean McVay. I mean, he's way better than that other guy they got across the freeway or whatever they're doing there. What is up with this guy? I mean, unbelievable. And they pull it off. And they got the win. But I don't even know what to make of the Chargers and Browns. All I can say is, at least from a fan's perspective, it was entertaining. I didn't bet the game, but if you bet it, pull your hair out. The model liked the Browns +3. It ended up being the Browns +3 was great, but can you really feel that confident about that pick? What were your takeaways from this game besides just the fact that Brandon Staley needs to go back to being a coordinator?
I took the first half Browns money line, and luckily it sneaked through because after that Chubb fumble, the Chargers almost came back and won the first half too. I also had on a different ticket parlay, and it's the only game that we ended up losing. I tried to take it at +2, and the type of stuff Caesars always does when they see it's me betting, they changed to +1.5. Right when I was putting it in, they changed it to +1.5, so I ended up losing that one ticket that I had. The main takeaway from this game, so many mistakes on both sides by these coaches. It first started with Stefanski. He put the Chargers back in the game, going for it from his own 30 with a freaking stretch play. They hit Kareem Hunt for like a 10-yard loss, just the dumbest play call ever. Just punt the ball, man. Then Brandon Staley tries to one-up him and like, oh, no, I'm going to get on kick the damn extra point this week. And he unnecessarily goes for a 4th and 1 from his own 47-yard line. Like you don't have a defense. Like that's one of your units that you coach every week. Like, and you're a defensive coordinator by trade. So it's just the silliest stuff I've ever seen before. Then Stefanski gets the ball and literally doesn't call one play spread from the 47-yard line that gets a yard. They are in the same spot and kick that field goal 4 yards to take the ball on 4th down with like a minute left. He didn't run the ball to Chubb, hustle to the line. He didn't out pattern to the sidelines. He tried 2 deep passes. What are you doing? You're not going to set up your kicker for a better kick. You're outside and you got him kicking. Cleveland is right on the wall. It's never an easy kick in Cleveland. This one of those outside stadiums is just a weird stadium like Pittsburgh is, and everything in that area, in Cincinnati as well. In that area where those rivers are at, it just makes a weird kicking environment. You're outside, man. You have these weird gusts, these weird winds, and just weird ways that the ball takes off in those stadiums. He knows this from being the head coach there, and you make this guy kick a 54-yarder. Like, it's a good kick. It was just the battle of the little rascals, man. More of these guys who are just out here playing mad, not thinking anything about time, situation, and most of all, what kind of message you're sending to your team. It's okay to be gung-ho and say, okay, I'm going to go for it, I'm going to go for it. But sometimes it's just stupid. And I had the Browns. I was so happy when Staley blew it, but then Stefanski let me down and went right back and did the same dumb stuff. It's just, I'm just going to stop betting on any games with certain coaches that I do what they're supposed to do in these situations.
Speaking of terrible coaching, your guy Kyler took another L, but got the cover there, 20-17 against Arizona. You and I are both down on Kingsbury, but Kyler takes a little bit of a hit here too. So you got to be aware when you make that slide. You got to get to the 1st down marker there. Put them in a tough situation.
He thought he got it, man.
I know, but I'm just saying.
He wasn't touched, so he thought that he thought with him not.
But you have to know the rule. It's where you start to give yourself up, and that's been the rule for a while.
Man, was in a situation where he had 3 defenders that had him. Each one had 6'4", 240. He did an amazing job even getting close to it because he couldn't go through him. So the slide that he was doing, if he'd have went head first, he'd have got knocked out of the game. So he had to slide because we always talk about quarterbacks protecting themselves. No, protects themselves more than him with that. He keeps himself safe from getting big hits. That's on the coaches, man. The coaches are supposed to get on the mic. They're on the headset as soon as you come to the line. Kingsbury don't know what the hell's going on ever. He didn't say, hey, you didn't get the first. Hey, or tell the ref, hey, stop it, man. I want to measure. None of that. So what Kyler's doing is trying to think there's 30 seconds left. I'm running out of time. Okay, we got the first. Let me spike it so I can get us another play because he's trying to coach this team and quarterback. Do you know Sean Payton was about this morning that the Arizona played that game the only way that they could have won the game, and that it was impressive even though they still lost the game. And the reason why I was most impressive is because the Eagles averaged most points in the first half out of anybody in the NFL. The Cardinals averaged the least. They're 32 in first half points. What does that have? Right. The Eagles can have their team ready to play with the beginning of the game. They have a plan in place. Kingsbury does not come in with a good game plan in any of these games. It always comes down to Kyle having to be Houdini at the end of the game. Now the defenses are tired. Now let me try to bring us back and just play street ball and 2-minute offense. And Kingsbury just sitting over there holding the thing, reading it like he's doing something. You're not doing jack, man. If you had any sense, you would have stopped everything right there. Could have got a free timeout. All you had to do was tell the ref, hey, hold on, man. We want to measure. Or, hey, Kyler, they're not giving us the first. We're going to stop it. Step on the field. Hey, ref, can I get a measurement? Or something to stop the whistle, to stop the play, to give time to think instead of just watching and holding his paper and pretending like you're reading plays, you know? So about Kyler, one, he thought he got the first down from looking from the side when he took off sliding. As you said, rules. When the slide starts, it was still questionable because he kind of slid like right there, half inch, but it was definitely close enough to get a measurement if his coach is on game. And it's definitely his coach is supposed to see that they put on the yard markers that it was still third down. So why aren't you in a headpiece telling him, hey, it's third down. Hey, it's third down. Hey, it's third down. Instead, you just watch it and watch this guy spike it. Steve Kimes goes and hires Matt Amendola, who just got fired from Kansas City. He comes and smokes this easy field goal, 47-yard field goal inside a dome, and you can't make it, you know. So I'm just over Arizona, man. I'm over the coaching staff, their GM. I'm over the way that they manage their team because they're making Kyler look horrible.
We'll disagree on whether or not he really is horrible. But I'm not betting on him until he gets Hopkins back. I think that was a big part of his success. Let's talk about your team who gets it done against the Seattle Seahawks. But my takeaway, man, is this Geno thing's not a fluke. He put up 32. That loss wasn't on him. He looked good. He was dropping dimes to Tyler Lockett. Geno Smith is looking good. Pete Carroll's looking smart. And if it wasn't for an incredible performance by Taysom Hill, they get another win. I don't know. For the way they are right now, though, I don't know if they mind losing. When you trade Russell Wilson, you're basically signaling to everybody, your franchise and your fan base, that this is a rebuild. I think that having a competitive game and looking good, and you know, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, especially with how stacked this draft class is. So what were your takes away on the Seahawks and the Saints?
The Seahawks not going to be in the lottery. They're not going to be one of the top teams with a chance to win these quarterbacks unless these quarterbacks fall that's coming out. I hope they don't get in the Will Levis business. A lot of people are pushing Will Levis on people from Kentucky. I don't know why.
I mean, if Geno keeps balling, they might just grab a D lineman or an offensive lineman and just run it back.
You know, Pete Carroll loves the defense. You can get another 3 to 4 years serviceable out of Geno, and he's only going to get better with the system. The receivers are all locked in. Lockett's not going anywhere. Metcalf's not going anywhere. Eskerith isn't going anywhere. That's how you say his name, right? The kid from Western Michigan. Number one, he can ball too. I remember him in college. He was a real playmaker in the MAC. Geno is more than serviceable. Geno is a legit pro quarterback, and he was making some dime throws. We forget at West Virginia how he could spin it. He's got his confidence. The main thing that's important, he has a team that believes in him. We just were speaking about this. Quarterbacks are set up for failure most of the time. Many of these top quarterbacks come into these terrible organizations. They receive terrible coaching. They don't put these guys in position to succeed. You see how Geno looks now with a competent coach and with a competent franchise. Geno Smith can play, man. It's time that we give him some respect. He's not that old, so this might be his job the next 3-4 years, and I'd love to see that for his career. Kind of reminds you of what happened with Randall Cunningham and Minnesota Vikings, kind of what happened with the Oilers, where later in his career, he got the chance he deserved and really played good, man.
Yeah, Rich Gannon's another one too, right?
Rich Gannon,
comes in late. Great story and great for your Saints to get the win and not let that season slip away. Because
Saints get the win. The Saints don't impress me though. Saints don't impress me.
But who impresses you in the NFC South? That division's wide open. Panthers are dead. Saints probably still better than the Falcons.
I don't know if we beat the Bucs this year because
our
problem is this. Andy Dalton, man, I can't trust Andy Dalton against Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, I just can't trust Andy Dalton against Tom Brady. Andy Dalton tried to give away the game yesterday. He threw an interception, and it ended up where Taysom Hill had a Superman-type performance, but you could believe he'll be hurt in the next couple weeks, unfortunately, because he plays so physical, and he always is on the IR before the season's over, man. I wish him the best and help. And I love to see him play. Sean Payton was saying earlier today on a Collins show that he wished that John Madden would have seen Taysom Hill. He would have loved Taysom Hill, and I couldn't agree more. He would have loved watching him play and calling his games, man. Taysom Hill is a real man. He does it all. He does anything the team needs him to do. Tight end, quarterback, kickoff, you name it, he does it. What makes me so bad, he was available yesterday for tight end. My tight end is Kyle Pitts. I don't know why I drafted this guy. He's all been so hyped, and the coach doesn't like him for some reason, doesn't get involved. He was hurt, so I had to go grab a tight end. Taysom Hill sitting right there, and I thought about it, like, maybe I should grab him. He does more than just catch balls. He might go do something. He goes out for 58 points, one of the highest scoring games in the history of fantasy football. But Taysom Hill is a player, but I don't know if it's sustainable. You know, with that type of offense, that's how you score is through quarterback runs and quarterback
especially that Seahawks defense is pretty bad.
Yeah, they're not good. They're not good at all. They're going to be in shootouts all year.
Speaking of pretty bad, the Packers' ability to stop the run is going to be what's going to keep that team from really contending to win the NFC there. Well, of course, we can talk about the issues with the wide receivers, but I think that Rodgers is going to continue to get that better. But how are they going to stop the run there? They even switched to the Wildcat, and they're still running off 30 yards. I mean, if Saquon Barkley's the quarterback, guys, probably going to be a run play. Still can't get it stopped there. Rough loss for the Packers. They had a chance there at the end. They couldn't get it done. Giants improved to 4-1. You told me about Brian Daboll. I was worried that even, the best coaches can't get it done with the worst players, but he's made Daniel Jones look good. And I thought that losing Daniel Graham was going to be tough for that team. Wink Martindale has shown that he's just a fantastic defensive coordinator. Loved what he's bringing there to this team. This team is well coached. Talk about maximizing your roster. You can't say that the Giants don't do that. Pretty exciting. We didn't think the NFC East would be that good. These teams are great, so you got to give the Giants their credit. Packers can turn this around, but they got to stop the run. What did you think?
Brian Daboll can coach, man. That's all I could think. He has those guys situated so good. Then he made a great defensive hire, getting Don Martindale from Ravens. Now he doesn't even have to think about the defensive side of the ball. He can just concentrate on what he does best, offense, and just chime in a little bit because he has more than a competent veteran DC who knows what to do. Those guys are maximizing the talent in New York. They're doing a great job over there. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. Your best player, Saquon Barkley, get him the ball, and Saquon's finally healthy, having an MVP type season. He's right up there with Josh Allen and Mahomes for MVP candidate early. Hasn't been a running back to win the MVP since Adrian Peterson won back in 2012, 10 years ago. Just a wonderful player, man. The explosion, power, and the speed that he shows is just unbelievable, man. He's a team guy. And I'm really happy for the Giants, man. The Packers are going to have some problems. Don't be surprised if the Jets don't roll in there in Lambeau and get them hell because the Jets can run the ball. Breece Hall, Michael Carter can run. When Zach Wilson is playing, the Jets are a different team. We'll get to that game. Jets are at the Packers next week. At first, their schedule looked like a run over. But I like the Jets with the points already, no matter what the number is.
Tell me about the Jets and the Dolphins. Interesting with the concussion protocols, but you know what? Miami deserves this because they're the ones who put Tua back in that game. They're the ones who rushed him back. So they basically, the rule is because of them. And now, of course, they're the first victims because in the old concussion protocols, Bridgewater would have been able to play. I don't know, 40-17, though. I don't know if that changes it. What were your thoughts on that one? I thought this is really a tough game to really take a lot away from. Miami was pretty close with like 10 minutes to go. It just kind of snowballed on them. What were your thoughts there?
Remember, we questioned, was Robert Saleh the guy? In the offseason, we were talking about it, and we said we didn't know. We had to see how he looked when he got his players. I think he is the guy. Those guys play hard for him. The Jets are young, and they're good, and they haven't missed on any of their picks. Zach Wilson's a future star. Breece Hall's a baller. Garrett Wilson's a baller. Sauce Gardner's a future star. Michael Carter's better than average. Elijah Moore has speed. And then Mekhi Becton got hurt. He's going to be back. He might be one of the best young left tackle prospects we've seen. The Jets are going to be a problem. We thought that it was going to be Miami that was going to be really contending with the Bills over the next few years. But now I'm starting to seriously believe if healthy on their side that it's going to be the Jets, man. I like Robert Saleh a lot. He has that team playing with that same ferocity that you used to see and energy that he brought to the Niners. That's kind of continued now since he's left. He brought a whole different type of energy. He has Mosley at the linebacker, so he can kind of do him what he did with Fred Warner. I think the Jets are really underrated, and they're guys that all hit, and they hit fast, that they got from the draft. Zach, of course, has a lot more growth to do. He still turns the ball over a little bit too much, but I love how they're protecting him. He's only throwing the ball like 20 times a game. But Sauce Gardner might be the top cornerback of the league now as a rookie. He's that good, and I thought it was a lot of hype on his name coming out of Cincinnati. I'm like, yeah, so what? No one ever completed a pass on him all season. But Sauce Gardner's the real deal, man. I watched tape on him now. He might be the best cover corner in the league already as a rookie, which is a lot to say. He made the big play that knocked Bridgewater, as you say, out of the game because of concussion protocol. How quickly things change in Miami, things have changed all the way. Ever since that situation with Tua and the way they handled it now, their season is about to go south. You can see everything's coming apart, and they started with so much hope. As you said, their coach is a rookie. We don't know if he's a leader of men. We're going to see you can only be a nerd and call plays for so much. What about when it comes to getting these guys going and fixing the problems and being outspoken about, hey, we're going to get on this path together, guys. We're going to overcome this. Okay, we handled this Tua situation wrong. Now we're going to do this and do this. We're going to stay together as a team. I didn't see that. As the game went farther and farther, it's kind of snowballed. You just put a 40 on them, knocked the quarterback out, turned over the third-string quarterback out of Kansas State. Thompson, they turned him over. I just like how the Jets are playing, man. I like the Jets a lot. And the books already were on them because the Jets keep receiving +3, and they keep winning those games money line.
Yeah, it shows that there's more to coaching than just play calling and play design. Talk to me about Sunday Night Football. Ravens beat the Bengals. Bengals covered the spread.
I text you guys started, and I told you.
I should have followed it. I said, you know what? I'm done betting NFL
and
for today. I've been watching this stuff since 6 in the morning.
Right. Well, it's Lamar's inaccuracy for one thing. I knew that the Bengals defense would do a really good job containing him. The Ravens had control of that game up 10-0. I'm sweating about to pass out. I'm cussing at myself. My wife and the kids and I were out eating dinner. And I'm, acting like I'm talking to them, but really I'm watching the TV. And I was like, man, I shouldn't have bet the first half. Just bet the game. I'm beating myself up because I had the first half and the game. Sure enough, Lamar overthrows a guy, interception, Bengals. That gave them all the momentum they needed to get back in the game. They ended up tying 10-10 before the half. But we're dealing with one of those little rascals with the Bengals coach. He's from that same little tree of those guys who think they're playing Madden. Little Sean McVay buddies. He gave that game away. When the game was 10-10, the Bengals came off a big stop on defense. They drove the ball all the way down. They're at the 5-yard line. He decides to run a Philly special. But we'll talk a little bit more about this twerp Zach Taylor when we get to kick the damn extra point. Just overall, the main thing that stood out for me was bad play calling in the red zone by Cincinnati. Too much trying to make Joe Burrow a hero by Cincinnati. And great coaching by Harbaugh and forcing Lamar off the field on 4th downs and taking the 3 points because they only won by 2 points. And as you see, every time he took those 3 points, they counted. He gave Lamar one shot at the 4th down. He didn't make it. He didn't give him another shot the rest of the game. Even with the one, he kicked the short field goal, and those points ended up adding up and getting the victories. They get 4 field goals from their Hall of Fame kicker, Justin Tucker, Texas alumni, so I know he was feeling great after the Longhorns showing at the Red River Showdown. So he kicked a 58-yarder, man. This guy doesn't look like he stopped anytime soon. He has to go down as the greatest kicker ever. And we forget how special teams matter, and we know that Harbaugh was a special teams coach for the Eagles before his long tenure he's had now with the Ravens. And he still has enough sense to kick the damn extra point. And that's why he's had all his continued success in the league.
Can't believe that Mike Zimmer doesn't have a job. Brian Flores is a coordinator. But everyone's so in love with this idea that play calling is not leadership. Play design is not leadership. The fact that both those men are not on NFL sidelines, but we got to deal with Zach Taylor, Cliff Kingsbury, Nathaniel Hackett. Unbelievable what's going on in the National Football League. Doesn't look like $1 billion business to me.
Into the present.
Yeah, Las Vegas Raiders are going to head to Kansas City where they haven't had success. We were talking about that on the phone before we jumped on. Patrick Mahomes 7-1 straight up against the Raiders, 5-2-1 against the spread against the Raiders. They were Oakland Raiders for some of it, Las Vegas Raiders for some of it. Doesn't matter where they're at. Mahomes gets it done against them. But you're telling me don't read too much into those trends. It's a trap. I'll tell you one thing I'm worried about, though, right? What are a couple trends that have come through so far this season? Jacksonville beats Indy, right? The Raiders beat the Broncos.
Texas beat Jacksonville.
And Texans beat the Jaguars, right? So maybe there is something to these trends. Talk me through this game. It's my favorite team. I feel a little emotional. I haven't gotten involved yet. How do you think I should be approaching this?
Chiefs, as you said, they've dominated the Raiders. Winning the past 3 meetings by a combined score of 124-54. They've beaten about 70 points in the last 3 times. So they've won 8 of the team's 9 matchups and 13 of the last 15. Mahomes continues to be the best player in the NFL spread. He's surprisingly still underrated. He has to be the most underrated best player in a sport that I've ever seen. No one ever gives Mahomes his props. Maybe it's because he started so young, you don't really appreciate it.
It's this Josh Allen love affair right now. The Josh Allen love affair.
Yeah, I think Mahomes is going to have a Brady-type career where maybe in like 10 years after Josh Allen fades, or if Josh Allen might be right there with him.
I'm worried that McDermott's going to Cam Newton this Allen kid. He's putting too much on him.
He's running too much. He's running too much. He's wearing
and just throwing too much. You're up 38-7. There's a thing called a handoff, buddy.
He's not going to have a shoulder. But Pat Mahomes is in a great situation over there with Andy Reid. But if hopefully Allen can continue to be his contemporary and be like kind of his Manning to Brady. But I think that Mahomes end up having a Brady-type career that by the middle of his career, after he's been doing it so long, people start saying, hey, man, wait a second. This guy's pretty good. You know, like he's been doing this a really long time. Right now, he leads the league with 11 touchdown passes. He has the highest quarterback rating, 82%. Nobody even says anything about it. So,
loses Tyreek Hill without a step. Look what happened to Aaron Rodgers when he loses Devontae Adams, right? And I always say Kyler needs Hopkins. I mean, a lot of these guys need their number one guys. He just missed him without a step. Unbelievable. Great job.
He has his number one guy, Travis Kelce. His number one guy is Travis Kelce. The differences between him and Lamar is his accuracy. Lamar has Mark Andrews, but when his receivers are wide open, like you saw last night, he had 3-4 guys running wide open for touchdown, sells it. Mahomes doesn't miss those passes, so that's the difference is his accuracy, man. Mahomes is a great athlete, a magician in the pocket, and then he can still just line up and just still be a 6'3", 6'4", 220-pound guy just standing tall in the pocket and throw it as well. So that's the great thing about him. And I think that sometimes him being so great makes us take it for granted because he's been doing it since the first moment. He makes it look so easy. It almost makes it where people kind of tired of him being good, already because he's just so good at a young age. But he's going against a Raiders team that's yielded 100 points and 1,015 passing yards. They're in the bottom third of the league in both. But the Vegas Raiders' 3 losses have all been by a combined 13 points. Last season, the Raiders were 7-2 in one-score game spread, like we talked about. So maybe it's more on Josh McDaniels than people want to admit that they're losing these close games.
Remember I talked about they get rid of these coaches too quickly? I think learning a new system's tough. And from what I've heard, McDaniels has one of the most complicated systems. So,
of course.
Well, we want to run them down. The thing is, you usually just don't replace your coach when you're 10-7 and coming off the playoffs. So, right, if he takes over a team like Carolina, you're expected some teams. A lot of expectations there. And I've heard both Adams and Carr talk about it's been a tough transition for him. So I'm not ready to write the obituary.
Still be their coach. They gave their coach a bad deal. He should have been the coach still today. And remember when they fired him, I told you, I said the Raiders are going to have some bad luck for doing this. It never works out right for these teams when they fire these guys like this who have been doing really well, who made the playoffs, who did their job, and who still get canned. it just isn't bad karma for the franchise, man, because you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to reward people for their excellence. You reward people for what they've done. And that guy did an unbelievable job. He took over the team in the middle of the year, in the middle of all types of drama going on with John Gruden and those emails and everything. And they didn't miss a beat. And in fact, they got better with him. And he still had in John Gruden's playbook. So they were used to that. They were used to running that. And as you remember, Derek Carr was on the verge of becoming a superstar last year. He looked really good. People thought that he was like, hey, you know, maybe this is the Carr we've been waiting on. Now he's regressed under McDaniels.
Because he's second guessing. He doesn't understand the system. He doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing.
Thinking too much. He's thinking too much. Thinking way too much. If I was McDaniels, and that's what I was talking about like how these coordinators, they get these coaches, these certain players, and they start drawing up all these dream things that they want to do when they were players and mess up the guy's whole career with that stuff. And McDaniels is one of those guys who's borderline on that too, because if you had any sense, you'll just ask Devontae Adams, what worked for you guys in Green Bay? Because as we know, Devontae Adams was getting triple teamed every game, and that still didn't stop him from averaging 8 to 10 catches a game, over 100 yards a game, and touchdowns every game, you know, because whatever was being drawn up from him in Green Bay was working. So why not ask him, hey, what were you guys doing when you got this look in Green Bay? What were you doing? I know we're going to do it my way. Sometimes your way isn't the only way, man. And if you're not flexible as a coach, you're going to lose, period. So, you know, that was McDaniels' problem also in Denver. They say he was a little tyrant. So maybe he's kind of stuck in his ways, trying to be a little Belichickian. Whatever he's doing, he better get it together fast, because if they don't make the playoffs, it looks really bad on him coming from a team that was a playoff team last year, and you have more talent this season. The Raiders are 1-5 against the spread. Kansas City is 8-3 against the spread, and that's 11 means. It's going to be very difficult for Raiders to stay in this game. Hunter Renfrow is back, and that's one good thing that's going for them, because they've been really injured, and they still have some more injuries they're dealing. The only thing that scares me about this game, man, is because KC, 75% of the public money, man. That's the only thing that scares me. Vegas did not build all these billion-dollar buildings out here from being wrong. They love to fade the public. I feel like the number isn't moving, the reason for it, and it's stuck at this 7. I saw 7.5 earlier, but it's a lot of buyback from the sharp guys. You know how many teasers are waiting on Kansas City -1, Kansas City money line, Kansas City -7. It doesn't make sense to me at all, but if I play the side of this, it's going to be the Raiders +7. Me and the clients actually took 7.5. So just because we just know in these standalone games how the public tries on these teams, and it never works their way. Another thing to look at with the Raiders being such a bad defensive team is the over. The over's 4-0 in the last 4 meetings. But for some reason, Max Crosby plays well against the Chiefs, man. I think he's going to be in the backfield a little bit and gives Mahomes a couple problems. And I think some type of way with the explosive weapons they have on offense and their ability to run the ball, and also the best player probably on the field on the offensive side of the Raiders, Devontae Adams, will have a big advantage on cornerbacks with Kansas City. So I think somehow the Raiders will keep it within the number.
Yeah, I'll be rooting for that. I'm a Raiders fan, and I haven't placed a bet on it yet. And boy, I think that one thing I've learned this so far this NFL season is discretion. I think there's certain spots where you get great handicaps, like that Dallas, where I thought the number was at least 2 points off. And then there's really tricky spots like tonight. And one thing we got to admit, right, this isn't the same game we were capping 10 years ago. These coaches, way different. The way they call the game is way different. I mean, did we even talk about that roughing the passer penalty? I mean, on Brady. I mean, it's not even football. Like, what are we doing here? It just right. So there's some things that we have to do as adjustments, right? And you talked about it when you were reviewing your college. There's some times where you say, hey, right, on Miami, I lost Bridgewater, right? Okay, tough beat. Illinois, you lost the quarterback. Tough beat, right? Yeah. Sometimes you handicap them wrong, but it really feels like a lot of these are just coming down to random things. So I think I'm fine here really being selective with my NFL. The other thing I have going for me is the NBA is about to start up. So I just can't wait for that. And it's almost the same idea in the NBA, but the difference is in the NBA, I have what? They play 10 games a night. So they have 70 games a week. So you don't notice that I'm
Right.
being selective, but I really am, you know, but it's because
Right.
I have 10 games a night and not just, you know, 15 games a week to choose from. So
Right.
what I would say is, unless you feel strong about this game, don't force these games just because they're on prime time.
Right.
And don't
Right.
let's say you like Kansas City. The Raiders have been pretty good on their first drives this year. Maybe you can get them at -3.5 after the opening
Right.
drive, right? Maybe you can get the
Right.
Raiders +14, right? Which is a lot nicer than +7 here. So so many different ways that we can approach this game. I'm not going to force things, especially with so much of the wild stuff that we've seen. I'd rather just be on these games where I feel like I'm just nailing the handicap. They made a mistake, and I'm going to take advantage. For the future today,
I'm going with the Suns under 53.5 wins. I think the Suns have a this year. I think they have a lot going on with their owner staying in the media. A lot more going on with Ayton being displeased and ready to be traded. So a lot of people are talking about Crowder wants to be traded too. So it's a lot of problems going on in that Suns locker room. Chris Paul is a year closer to 40. The Suns already been playing over their head. They have one of the more guardable stars in the league with Booker. Still, he's a great shooter, but he has to be shooting every night. And he's not at step level with his consistency and being able to make the three-point shot. Don't get me wrong, his mid-range game is unbelievable, but I think he's a more containable star than a lot of these different guys that we've seen. Like, for instance, I would trust Zion as my star more than I would trust Devin Booker, just simply because he's taking higher percentage shots. He's more difficult matchup. A lot of Bookers in the game. It's just he does it at a higher level than most people his size, and respect him for that. That's just gym work and, you know, being a straight baller. But I just think the Suns come a little bit down to earth this year. I think they had their push 2 years straight of contending and running the West and having a chance to actually get to the finals and actually get into the finals to the Bucks and losing. But after they had that lead on Dallas and were laughing at Luka, I don't think they're going to never recover from that. I don't think that they sniff the championship again, personally. I think they have a down year this year. So I think that under 53.5 will be a really good bet. They're going to be relying on a lot of players who are not superstars or not even more than really role players. Most of their team is going to be role players, especially after Aiden gets out of there. And as I said, Crowder was the glue guy, so Crowder doesn't want to be there anymore. And it's just a black cloud over their team with the Sarver situation. So I'm going with the Suns under 53.5 wins.
Yeah, my concern there is the books are aware, you know, this is a team that won over 60 wins the last 2 seasons, so they've definitely adjusted. But to go ahead and talk about my concerns for this team, everything you said, but I want to emphasize why Jay Crowder is so important. Jay Crowder in your starting lineup is fantastic, right? Then what do? You bring Cam Johnson off the bench. He's an excellent two-way player. Now let's look at who their bench is now. You got either guys that are all defense that are going to cause clogging, spacing issues on the offense, or you got guys that are all offense like Campaign. They're going to be defensive liabilities. I think losing Crowder takes away a piece for Monty Williams and versatility where he can't be a balanced team when they go to the bench. So they're really going to have to win these starter minutes, and they're not going to be cruising in the last 6 minutes. Why is Chris Paul so good? Because with the lead, he's tough. You know, he can get you that high range shot to where you're not going to be able to get stops, and you can't make a comeback if you're not getting stops. The other thing I've noticed in preseason, they're already going after Chris Paul, and I don't watch much preseason, but they're saying, if you want to switch, we're going to go at Chris Paul all day. Chris Paul was a great defender. I don't know how old he is, but it's over 35, right? You're not that quick. No one, you're not even supposed to be playing point guard at the age he's playing. It's already a win that he's still in the league, but he's not going to be able to stay in front of guys, right? Go through the West, right? I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie, De'Aaron Fox, Damian Lillard, guys like Reggie Jackson, John Wall. I mean, this is tough. The guys in Houston are all going to be able to beat him off the dribble. Jalen Green, right?
All the guys in Houston.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with you. I guess my only concern is they've adjusted this a lot. We'll see how far the Suns really fall. The West is stacked too. The West is stacked too. I mean, talk about, you know, going back to my Kings and De'Aaron Fox. I know they're going to try and make a push, but almost every team is going to make the push except for Utah and except for OKC. Everyone else is pretty good. So I can't wait for this season. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to be on the over for this Phoenix team. And boy, and you talked about how arrogant these guys were. They went from being like lovable losers to guys that nobody likes in like 2 years. So you know something's wrong there, right? It's like can't hate the Chicago Cubs, right? Because they've never beat your team. It's kind of how the Phoenix Suns were, right? They weren't good since Kevin Johnson, who became the mayor of Sacramento.
Right.
Kevin Johnson was there. They haven't been good. And all of a sudden they got us to hate them. What a bunch of – you got to be a bunch of jerks. If you've never had success as a franchise and you already get people not to like you. I don't think the fan base helped either, knocking people out, Suns and four, stuff like that. But, it's under a pass for me there. Yeah, under a pass for me there. So I think you got a great pick. Kick the damn extra point now. And I'll tell you what, I mean, 5-star, this might have to be its own show with how bad the coaching in the NFL is. I mean, we might have to make this just a whole separate 1 hour show because I really think it's unbelievable how much they've dropped. And it's because everybody's trying to get the hot new coordinator and these guys don't have the experience and they're learning on the fly. And learning on the fly is great if you're a waiter at Denny's. You can pull it off, but you're doing it in front of billions of people. This National Football League, as much as the quality's gone down, we ain't stopped watching. The quality's going down, but the ratings are going up. So, they're having to figure this out on the fly. And you know what? Last year it was kind of like, oh, it's pretty obvious how it is. There are so many candidates for this award now. I mean, could be 5 different people. Who was able to emerge and become the cream of the crop for kick the damn extra point?
Zach Taylor won by a nose. He barely he barely squeaked by the other 2 little rascals that were playing each other over there in Cleveland. And McVay, he deserves a shout out just because he got his team butts handed to them again at home against Dallas. But Taylor deserves it because you can run the Philly special inside the 5 and 3rd down with a goal-to-go situation in a division game against your division rival. Once again, they're playing Madden, and I don't like it. I'm tired of it. Just play football, man. Just call regular play. Stop trying to be so smart. Stop trying to make Sports Center. It was 2nd down. It wasn't 3rd. It was they lose 15 yards on this dumb Philly special play. Come back the next play, Burrow throws it down to like the 2.5, maybe the 1.5 to 2. Joe Mixon is available. He's averaging 6 yards a carry. Do you know Joe Mixon got 14 carries last night? Every time he got the ball, he was getting to the safety before he was getting touched.
And these coordinators, because they draw up such cool, their passing plays are so cool, they don't want to run the ball either. And they're going to say, oh, well, less expected yards per play. You know what? On our other show, the one I do Friday, we got an ex-offensive lineman. And I said, I always talk to him. I said, what do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to move forward or run backwards? What do you do when your coach walks in and says, hey, we're going to be backpedaling 50 times today, and you're only going to move forward 14 times? You're getting your offensive lineman killed.
Getting them killed. Mixon gets 14 carries. Like I said, he's not getting touched until he gets to the safety. Line has opened up big holes for him. As you said, linemen want to move forward. These guys want to get out there. Lyle Collins is a mauler. He wants to get out there and run into some people. He's tired of having to fall back, step back, and get hit in the chest by a pass rusher, and these guys, it's like a little frat group, and what they do is these little frat boys see themselves as their favorite player. Sean McVay, who captained the Little Rascals Club, look at him and Cooper Kupp. He loves Cooper Kupp so much because he sees himself inside of Cooper Kupp. Like, this is an underrated, undersized wide receiver from a small school. This is me. So he makes sure that he runs every damn play with Cooper Kupp, trying to blow his stats up like he's playing Madden, trying to get him to the Hall of Fame and stuff. And you got Zach Taylor over here in Cincinnati doing this same foolishness because he was the quarterback in Nebraska. He was good. He was a Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, but he didn't do well in the pros at all. He lasted about 2 years into playing in Canadian football. He gets Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow's this Heisman winner, throw the ball around. Oh, yeah, this is me. I would have made it. So he does everything he can to pump up Burrow's stats instead of just playing football. 4th down, a play that could have gave him the lead when it was 10-10. You're in this congested goal line area. He run damn shuffle pass. Play gets blown up immediately as soon as but he's just trying to get, instead of just handing the ball off, he's trying to get Joe Burrow a cheap touchdown for his stats. And that's what ended up costing them that game. Then you come right back down. He lets Mixon on the last possession that they had the ball, run the ball all the way down to the one, and then he runs a quarterback sneak with Burrow still to get it in there for him. You know, like, it's just weird stuff that's going on with these guys, because these guys literally out here living their dreams through their favorite players on a team that they identify with most, and that's not a benefit to the rest of the team who's out there busting their butts trying to win and all trying to work in unison. And instead you worrying about what's the best play call, you're worried about your favorite player getting points. You almost think these guys are playing fantasy or DFS or something the way they're coaching. But it's just simply too much Madden football. And I'm going to stop allowing my money to get involved with these little crazy coaches with their Madden games. So, Zach Taylor, we know what you're doing. We see what you're doing in the sick, man. Kick the damn extra point.
Let's move to the ball and parlay. And you kind of said it. We're going to be more selective here. And I'll be honest, I haven't been watching as much tennis. I looked over. I don't like the game tonight. I looked over the lines for tomorrow. Nothing really jumped out at me. Let's just give them the one thing, the one that you sent me, because I'm just going to bet that. I don't need to have 10 things in my pending slip. I want the one winner. Give us the winner for tomorrow night.
Got to go with baseball. It's my home team, my favorite team in all the sports. That's the Houston Astros, man. We're going first 5 innings and the first 5 innings run line. So it'll be a -200 split with a minus, I think 140 is what I'm seeing on the run line for the first 5. You got Hall of Fame pitcher Justin Verlander on the mound. He's a Hall of Famer on the field and off the field because he also married one of the hottest women in the world. His last start, he threw a no-hitter through 5 innings. The 39-year-old is one of the greatest postseason pitchers in MLB history. He always shows up in the postseason, as he led the Astros to our only championship in 2017. And he also was a workhorse that got Detroit Tigers to their last World Series. He was 5-1 in matchups against the Mariners this season. Only surrendered 1.8 runs per contest. The only reason it's over 1 is because he had one bad outing way back in May against Seattle where he gave up 6 runs. But the other 5 matchups, he's dominated it, with them only scoring 1 run max in each of those appearances. Seattle used their ace Luis Castillo last Friday. I highly doubt they tried him out game 1. Rob Gray pitched for them on Saturday, so that leaves most likely Logan Gilbert or George Kirby, I'm thinking, that's going to start for them. I don't think they go with Marco Gonzalez. Neither one of them is prepared to go pitch for pitch with JV. Astros are the 2nd highest scoring team in the first 5 innings, only trailing the Dodgers. They average about 3 runs in the first 5. We're also 4th in first inning runs. Most of the Astros starters have led the league in pitching. I think the Mariners are really just happy that they got through that last series, and they're going to kind of set the pitching schedule up for starting probably with game 2, like so they can get their rotation lined up where they can get back to their main guys. I wouldn't be surprised if Castillo pitches in game 2, and they probably go back with Ray in game 3. So those first 5, I expect them to be hyped about coming out and getting in the playoffs. It's baseball, one of the best atmospheres you're going to find is in Houston. I've been at so many playoff games, and the fans are going to show up and they're going to be going crazy. And I think the Astros come out with a lot of energy and try to jump on the Mariners early. So we're going Astros first 5 innings, -200, and run line -135. We don't want to even deal with the bullpen. We're going to ride that strong right arm of Justin Verlander. Anything for the people before we get out of this spread?
No, man. Fun show today. Fun breaking down all those games.
We went a little long, but it was a lot to talk about. We hope you guys enjoyed the show. You guys tune in with us on Wednesday. We'll be back. We're going to start being more timely with these shows on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays, getting them out early enough to you. The process is a long time. We got to add the music. We got to do things like that. We can give you guys the full experience of the wagering world. Follow my guy, Spread Astaire, at Spread Astaire. Follow me at 5 Star in Vegas. But after 5, we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Best of luck to you all.